How's everybody? Happy early Turkey Day. I'm wearing the hoodie in a nice, warm, comfortable space here, but definitely to rep all the High Horse gear on sale during our Black Friday deals. Guys, we're going to be going over Black Friday today before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's episode. Today's episode for our Budtenders, guys, is for you guys. Just catching up and reorienting everybody with the purpose of why me and Bennett even exist for High Horse Cannabis Company, right? We are your in-house trainers. And on that, we are providing all of you guys, we're trying to make sure that you get the state-of-the-art training on everything that has to do with cannabis products, patient care, medicinal cannabis, so on and so forth. So we can be the top thought leaders, the top educators, advocates in our community, guys. That is the goal. We need to make it happen and we need to get there. So how do we do that, right? We will do that with education by reinforcing all the things that we continue to talk about. I know, personally, I haven't had a chance to sit down with each and every single one of you, each and every single member of our team, but we can cover a lot of ground, through these podcasts on Wednesdays and really meet the masses. Not only that, we can reach the people out in our community that want to learn from what we are learning, from what we are training from, right? It should, cannabis is still so young and so early that we need to be shepherds of the message. We need to be carrying that, throughout everywhere, and to be able to really get this whole thing, dialed all the way in, guys. We need to take this back. We are going to make sure that we go through the cannabis crash course today, that we look at all the reasons and all of the opportunities to fill our toolkits up to help our patients. So we're going to look at the whys and how to apply it, and to make it make sense and make it simple as well. But first, we're going to get into our Black Friday deals. Bennett, we got
Black Friday
heck of a week.
All week long. It started on Monday. It does end on Friday. So we're in the middle of Black Friday. Get your sales now before you gather with the family. You might have someone who likes to partake, or, do all the partaking by yourself so you can handle the family situations.
Yes.
But yes, this week we have a whole bunch of sales. We do have the sales on our eights. We have 8 sales on our ounces. We have sales on our concentrate. We also have sales on the farmers quality products like the infused pre-rolls and the infused chocolates. Those are 50% off right now, guys. So we have the $15 eighths, $70 ounces. All of this is before tax. So after tax, it should come out to maybe $5 to $10 more. Then we also have the $20 farmers quality concentrates. On a usual basis, we have these sitting at $25, but they're reduced to $20 during Black Friday. Again, this is before taxes. This is your pricing before tax. Definitely reach out and, place an online order, get a delivery from Maine, something like that. Get some wax for your family, your friends. Infuse something with some concentrate. I don't know if you guys know, but you can use concentrate to infuse your foods. So make a Friendsgiving feast.
It's the time to share. It's time to stock up, fill those pantries with all your goodies, guys.
Another thing we have going on too, bring a can to the shops. If you donate a can, we will give you a free pre-roll. It's a select pre-roll, but we want to do a give back to the community, and we definitely want to be able to donate, canned goods to the community. So, and in turn, we want to reward you for being a good person. So donate some cans, pull up to the one of the drive-thrus and just hand over your can, hand over a flyer, and you got yourself a pre-roll.
Yes, and guys, also the 2 for $15 Gumzo gummies. I think also a flight can of cannabis drinks
if you buy
every Enchanted.
Any Enchanted Botanicals 8, you will get a infused energy drink with your purchase.
So very cool deals, guys, all Black Friday long. There's only 3 more days to enjoy it, but being open 24/7, 365, we're going to fit that after Thanksgiving meal, that pick me up. You guys go, you know exactly where to go. Think about it back in the days pre-prohibition, where you had to go hate to say it, stock up with your drug dealer before your Thanksgiving
Family
events,
function.
and then go hide and then go do the cousin walk and the whole thing. And so now that's starting to evolve. So we want to make sure that that's evolving
Now
right.
all of a sudden, grandma's asking you, "Hey, mijo, can I get a gummy?"
Exactly. So
my back hurts from cooking. Can I get a gummy? Yes, I've heard it. I've seen it. And just for clarification, I just got word that it's actually 5 cans to donate. So you donate 5 cans. We want to have a good surplus to be able to donate. Donate 5 cans, and we will get you a free pre-roll.
Fantastic, guys. So yes, Black Friday. Don't spend more than you can. Don't spend more than you make. All those things. Don't go empty the clip and not be able to do whatever else. Unfortunately, medicine is expensive, but we try to make it really affordable, deals. And this is a really good week to get it done.
I'm glad we started our deals early in the week because everybody was gonna Black Friday shop Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and no. So yes, we started early in the week so you can ration your budget a little more and get your deals on.
Yes, and where are we going from here, guys? So, all right, cleaning house. Some housekeeping materials here. Everything that we should be, beating the same drum on. High Horse Cannabis Company, guys. What if we, really think about the things that we need to understand, to reference? What are the things that are lacking, right? Where are we not hitting and making it make the most sense? So we're going to go over our cannabis crash course, developed by FarmTrue for pharmacy technicians here in the state of New Mexico, as well as pharmacists. It in 2021 was a continuing education credit worth, right, actual credits, and so it was accredited and everything like this, guys. I mean, we've developed good stuff. We've got plenty of in-house materials. I'm just cheating off of the stuff we've already done so we can talk about it in all the way. You guys have the visuals and go from there. So check this out, right? Endocannabinoid system, biggest number one thing to understand if you're going to start applying and doing and talking about cannabis and the medicinal value that it has and having the appropriate conversation, right? So do you know what the endocannabinoid system is? Can you say the word endocannabinoid? Do you know what an endocannabinoid versus a phytocannabinoid is, right? These are, maybe it feels a little simple for me to say because I sit there and beat the same drum in my own head all day long, but until I am absolutely worn out from saying this, will it barely even start being understood, and I'm okay with understanding that. So we're going to continue to hit it, right? Looking at the in-house evaluations that we're looking, guys, this is to get a pulse on where our knowledge in-house is in the company right now. This is not a, Terra Nova test. This is not anything like that. This is an open-ended conversational test. Bennett's going to be guiding each and every single one of you through the tests, and we're going to be reinforcing, if some of you guys who took the test before this podcast came out, you guys are champs. And you guys got to really learn.
Mm-hmm. You took it like a champ. You were open and honest about not being aware or not knowing certain things, which is perfectly understandable. And that's what we want to do. We want to know what you do know, what you don't know, what we need to dive further into. But overall, what I have noticed is we just need to have a full crash course for everyone, so we have an even playing field and everyone has a good starting line to a baseline.
So as you guys know, the last 8 or so podcasts, we've been highlighting producers, we've been highlighting manufacturers, we've been highlighting products, we've been highlighting dosage forms, different medicinal applications,
taboo subjects
exactly,
like opioids and pregnancy. So
maybe it feels random, maybe it doesn't, but there's so much, it never stops.
Yeah,
right?
There really is so much, and honestly, that's why the podcast is a better tool for us, so we can gear it towards what you guys are even asking in the future. We started off with the things that you might struggle to be able to purchase or sell, so that's what we wanted to give you some insight on. Then we wanted to get the taboo subjects that people often talk about, that way so you are better prepared to have those conversations. Now I think we're leaning into and gearing on a just full education seminar, so this is exactly where we're gonna get started. Everyone's going to have a good understanding, and we will know that you can refer back to this is episode 9, right? Episode 9. You can refer back to episode 9 to get a good baseline. So if we have a new employee, a new budtender, hey, you let them know, hey, if you check out episode 9, that's going to show you a whole lot of stuff that they want us to know from the base. So.
Yep, and that's I mean, the take home point, right, guys, we need a refresher. We need to measure the pulse of what we do know, and we need to get ourselves to where we know we can be, guys. So we have so much material out there. We are going to continue to keep hitting it and keep hitting every angle. You're not just going to get a paper. You're not just going to get an email with an attachment. You're not just going to get a podcast. You're not just going to get an evaluation. You're not just going to get an orientation. You're going to get the whole combo of it, and it's going to continue to reinforce. We want to have a beehive that can continue to learn on each other. We want you guys to be all of your brothers and sisters keepers, right? If you can tell that somebody doesn't understand the things that we're going to go over right now, and you have a better understanding of it, please talk about that while you're at work, right? We need to, if you can't talk about that with your coworker, how are you going to talk about it with a patient? So we need to practice talking about it, and we need to practice being really, conscious and mindful about what and why we are talking about the things that we do when it comes to cannabis, the endocannabinoid system, so on and so forth, which will dial out to the most basic questions of flavor and taste and things like that. But guys, we need to really go all the way in. So anyways,
it makes you a better budtender, and it makes you feel so good when you're at the register helping a client and they ask you a question and you actually have the answer to it. I can't tell you how many times I have been in that position years back where a client asked me a question and they knew further more education than I did. And it made me feel pretty bad about myself at the end of that transaction. It made me want to go and find further education because I did not want to be put in that situation ever again where a client has a further understanding on a product that I'm selling. So, and as leaders, as a manager or assistant manager, you guys be, that catalyst to encourage and check in on people, see if people have that understanding. And if you as a leader don't have that understanding, you always can reach out to me. We can have that one-to-one. Same thing for the budtenders. Everyone can reach out to me and have a one-to-one. If I don't understand, I will do that research right in front of you. If I don't further understand the research that's right in front of me, guess what? I'll call Joaquin. I'll call Colt. I'll call whoever. I'll call resources to make sure that we both have a good understanding of what we're trying to understand. And that's the biggest thing about it. We got to get ego out of here and just learn. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to say you don't know. I guess all I really care about is to see the effort that you want to learn.
Exactly. And when you guys really think about, on the simplest form, people wanting to spend their money and know what they're spending their money on, that. But in the most, empowering form, you're really helping people make the best health decisions for them while being mindful of their wallet, while being mindful of a lot of other things. So let's get to that point, right? Let's get there. So we're going to expect what we know out of you guys, based off of this, so on and so forth. If you're struggling, ask a friend. If you're struggling, talk to us. We'll get everybody up to speed. But
we've got the resources, podcasts, us, friends, coworkers. There's no excuse at this point now.
Yes, guys. Let's start this thing out, and then you guys will follow this thing up with some in-store materials for all of our store, all of our stores too. So you guys will have the educational material in your hands, laminated to go over, the science of what we're trying to say and what we're trying to do. But we'll start with the endocannabinoid system here, guys. AKA, what is it? Right? So the sixth major organ system. It seems so maybe easy, or it's just something that kind of rolls off the tongue. And if you're not really thinking about what the endocannabinoid system is, then maybe it's not really going to hit, right? So it's the neurotransmitter system responsible for the signaling of cannabinoids within our bodies, right? Neurotransmitters can be things as well as dopamine, right? Neurotransmitters are also what our body produces. So endocannabinoids. So we're going to get to how this all kind of hopefully makes sense. Anyways, endocannabinoid system is made up of receptors which respond to both endogenous and exogenous chemical compounds. So things that enter the body, that are not made by the body, or things that are made by the body. So your endocannabinoid system is millions of receptors throughout your body, right? And that's, those receptors lead to other effects. How that looks, we're going to get into it. Basically, think about that endocannabinoid system, and these effects can be modulated by other factors, such as even things like diet, sleep, exercise, and stress. So getting a look at cannabinoids, right? What are cannabinoids? How do we break this down? Like, let's compartmentalize this in our mind, right? So the things that are in all of our products are the phytocannabinoids right here on the left, right, guys? Phytocannabinoids, THC, CBD, most
CBN,
well-known. Yes.
CBG. And I say CBN because I know you budtenders are familiar with seeing a product in the store currently that contains a 1-to-1 with a THC and CBN ratio. We also have the CBD, THC, and CBG ratios. So definitely get yourself familiar with this and know that the correct term for that are phytocannabinoids. Your phytocannabinoids are going to be those things listed.
And why it's important, right? Because your body makes endocannabinoids, endo in the body. So the two in your body that mimic THC and CBD are anandamide and 2-AG. There's 2-arachno.
Glycerol.
Yeah, so 2-AG is the short word for it. Basically, they mimic the receptor interaction of THC and other phytocannabinoids. So anandamide, meaning bliss, basically in Latin is what THC is chemically. So they're the same chemical structure. THC is produced by the plant, anandamide is produced by the body. Why does it work? Because we already produce this blissful neurotransmitter that we upregulate and downregulate based on our homeostatic needs that we can supplement in deficiencies and so on and so forth with THC or CBD, right?
Actually.
So hopefully that can make sense about what's actually happening at the point of sale, right? Somebody's transacting to add more phytocannabinoids into their endocannabinoid system. They might be endocannabinoid deficient, even though they're not aware of that. Are you able to talk to them about being endocannabinoid deficient? I hope by the end of this, podcast that we can really talk about that and have, some meaningful conversation as to what that means. And so again, you can't go and take an endocannabinoid test like diabetes and get measured and see like, oh, okay, you can get up to here and you'll be fine, your autism will go away. No, it doesn't work like that, guys. But that's because over 100 years it's been, completely federally illegal and we couldn't be institutionally researching getting to that point. And that doesn't necessarily matter. So what we need to know right now is why we can get to the recommendations and the anecdotal evidence that we get to, because when you know that there's not these giant resources and pools of resources for you to pull from, you have to be intuitive. You have to be smart with what's going on with your customer there, right? We talk about tools in your toolkit. At the end of the day, your customer or your patient wants, right, a product. They want an answer, a solution to what they need or what they want. Maybe they're not always in there with medical intentions, right? And it's easy to shortchange that transaction and be like, okay, well, what can I get for you? And then, well, I don't have this one, but I have this one. It's made by the same person and this, but cool. That's just, think about how half-assed of a job that really is, guys. Like, think about if you really are getting to know somebody and knowing that that they might, be needing to use something for some particular reason, that they may want a particular flavor or a terpene, and that has helped them over time, and they may not have even been aware of that. How can you help somebody empower them to realize that themselves and to really look under that second layer? So, looking at that.
One thing you can challenge yourself is look at your next favorite usual client. Look at the things that they've purchased. Is there any common things that you see? From there, you can spark a conversation. See, I noticed you order this pre-roll and edibles almost every time. Seems like you may be doing a layering situation here. And if they don't know what you're talking about, then you create that conversation and then they have a further understanding. And I can say that as you explain more to clients or even to your family members or to your coworkers, you gain a further understanding, because you can get something explained to you and it can recept one way, but once you are able to explain it and teach it to someone else, you have a further grasp and a further understanding of it. So it's a challenge, definitely take a look at your usual client and get a further understanding on what they're looking for. Always do that. That we don't want to do half-assed jobs, like Joaquin said, and just give them the next best thing. We want to give them the next best thing for them.
Exactly. And to give you guys a better baseline or a reference point, I know as budtenders, maybe we're not thinking, hey, I haven't been science and medically trained like to some of this degree, and it feels intimidating looking at numbers and these scientific things, right, and chemicals, and maybe that feels a little intimidating, which is totally okay. You are forgiven. I am not holding you to that, but what I do want you to try to dial it down to is, how does this act? How can I actually apply what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing? How does it make sense? And what do I not understand? Exactly. So in the medical world, to give you an illusion of how, medicine is currently, you have primary literature, which is your full-on institutional research that is not an article, it's not cited, it's its own standalone piece of research, right? It's primary literature. That's your strongest amount of literature or data that you can come up with something. Anyways, why is that important? On the right side here, you see synthetic cannabinoids, Epidiolex and dronabinol or marinol. As a pharmacist, these are actually things that come out of a pharmacy. These are synthetic cannabinoids. These come out of the retail pharmacy. You could get this at Walgreens or at CVS, prescribed for you, FDA approved for those conditions that you see on the screen: Lennox-Gastaut, Dravet, anorexia associated with weight loss, and AIDS, and nausea, vomiting associated with chemotherapy. Great. Why is that important? We're not dispensing those in the dispensary. Well, these are the FDA approved baselines of synthetic CBD and synthetic THC that the government literally says, hey, these are the dosings that we use. And so maybe we're not going to mimic what the government does, but what it actually does is it kind of gives you a safety threshold too when you're talking about some of the dosing, like the Epidiolex. You're going on past 15 milligrams per kilogram per day. So, you're talking about thousands upon thousands of milligrams of CBD to treat these, seizure episodes of Lennox-Gastaut or Dravet. And so where that safely can be metabolized by the liver, safely still be initiated, so on and so forth, you can think of, hey, the dosing range that we're looking at with our phytocannabinoids and our plant, stuff that we're dealing with in the dispensaries is not even as far or as intense as these other synthetic cannabinoids are going to be. So just another reinforcement of the safety profile of when you actually have, the good certified stuff without pesticides and anything like that. Cannabis is so safe, the doses get incredibly high over here. And when I'm talking thousands of milligrams of CBD or THC, you're not ever going to really consider most people are taking thousands of milligrams of CBD or THC at home. So, where you really already kind of can just break that down to a patient and just say, hey, your liver, metabolizes these. Again, it does interact with other medications when it's processing cannabis, and that can affect how other medications or foods or vitamins might be metabolized in your body. But again, this is why you can guarantee, you are definitely not going to die based off of some of these things, and just more, reinforcement there. So that's just something I wanted to make sure that we bring up as a baseline, so you can kind of know what the life suit is on that. So anyways, let's get the visual. This is something everybody needs to know. So your CB1 and your CB2 receptors, how does that relate to your phytocannabinoids and your endocannabinoids? How does it all relate? Well, it absolutely relates, because your CB1 and CB2 receptors are your endocannabinoid system. As we talked about, your endocannabinoid system is millions of receptors in your body. So these are the two. It's only two
that we know of. I've
Yes.
actually heard that there's further studies being made, because there could be other receptors, but these are the two receptors that we have the most knowledge on. And I think we can credit that to Dr. Raphael Mechoulam, right? Is he the one in Israel? I don't know. I know Israel has a huge portion of science like this behind it, and I'm pretty
you're
sure
probably right.
I'm pretty sure receptors came from the studies out there. But for right now, this is what we understand, and from these two receptors that we've understood, we've learned so much. And one way to see this is your CB1 receptors are mainly going to be found in your brain. They're going to be abundant in the brain. They're going to be located along your millions along your neurons, because how many neurons do we have in our brain? So many. So that's why
brain, spine, CB1,
in your nervous system. So obviously it will also go throughout the rest of your body because of the nervous system, but it primarily only stays in the brain. So CB1, one way you can remember it is CB1, your head comes first. And CB1 is going to be highly reactive to THC. And hence why we get a head change and a head high when we consume THC. And CB2 receptors are going to be primarily located in the immune cells and the tissues. So you'll find it in your skin, your gut, all over your body, the rest of your body.
So guys, basically, that's exactly it. How do you visualize it even more and visualize the way it works? It's to me, the simplest breakdown is a lock and a key, literally, right?
Lock,
So
key. So your receptor is the lock, and the cannabinoid, whether it's a phytocannabinoid or an endocannabinoid, that's going to be the key. So when someone explains that they've gotten a runner high, that's because their key of anandamide in their body was released and it hooked onto their receptor. A lot of times that's why people say that they have runner's high and they've never consumed cannabis, or they didn't consume cannabis at that moment. It was just because that constant running created and activated the anandamide. So it's actually same thing happens with with chocolate. Chocolate creates the effect of bliss in our body, so then we release anandamide slightly in our body. So our body is naturally creating and producing these cannabinoids. So makes sense why when we add phytocannabinoids, it reacts well with our body, and it doesn't, it can't kill us because it's meant to be in our body. So yeah, great way to explain it. Lock and key.
So you got the two receptors, right? You got, we're going to talk about which are the keys to those locks, right? So that's what really becomes important, because you have to know which key goes on which lock, and then when it opens the lock, what happens, right? What happens with the CB1 door opening? What happens with the CB2 door opening? So get your visualization process in your mind ready for it. Your CB1 receptors, again, do not forget, located in your brain, located in your spine. Most abundant G protein coupled receptor in the million brain. For what that means to everybody doesn't matter right now, but millions of them, right? So you've got so many of them. That's why it works there. Okay, CB2 receptors, again, immune cells, tissues, gut, muscles. Okay, so that's where your CB2 receptors are at. Now let's talk about what happens when you open those doors. We are going to make sure that those get reinforced.
I'm going to list off a few things that the receptors target. For your CB1, it's going to target your motor activity, your thinking, your motor coordination, your appetite, your short-term memory, your pain perception, and your immune cells. So from there, you can gauge this for whatever a client is asking to alleviate or relieve. So then your CB2 receptors are going to be targeting your gut, your kidneys, your pancreas, your tissue, your skeletal muscle, your bones, eyes, tumors, reproductive system, immune system, respiratory tract, your skin, your central nervous system, your cardiovascular system, and your liver. So from there, you can gauge if a client is trying to help something out with their reproductive system or with their liver, then you know that you want to target and help them target their CB2 receptor rather than the CB1. So it's a good way to think about it this way. So having a chart on what CB1 and CB2 targets will help you better gauge what a client should target.
Yes, and so, take a look at this, and where Bennett just read it down, this is the visual reinforcement of the activation of those receptors, and where you see the endogenous cannabinoids on the left, same thing. So the top anandamide, that's THC, that's what your body produces, but if you do THC, it does the same thing. Down for the bottom one, the 2AG, that's CBD, so it activates. So let's talk about the top one, THC activating your CB1 receptor. You're seeing a lot of those effects on the upper part of the body there.
It unlocks, it increases your appetite, it'll increase your cerebral dilation, increases your core body temperature. Your CB1 will also increase your antioxidant enzymes in your skin. For your cardiovascular, it can decrease your heart rate, it can decrease your blood pressure, it can also coronary dilation. Wow.
So where the eyes kind of get.
Oh, where your eyes open up, which makes sense.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. That we see that happen all the time. But here's the science on why. Another thing that could happen with CB1, whenever you're using THC or anandamide is naturally being produced, you could see decreased cholesterol, decreased.
And this is some of the interesting
glucose
stuff.
Tolerance. So this is really important to try and gauge and better help a client help themselves. This is why we want to teach you guys. The receptors are super important. Do you want to go ahead and do CB2?
Yes.
Or did I hit everything?
No, she hit everything, and I'm just to kind of reinforce exactly what she's saying. As we do help patients and we see like these effects on what happens when you open up these, or when you activate the receptors, we're not always, you can't sit there and say, okay, you're going to lose weight because it says you're going to have increased lipogenesis. It's maybe a little bit of that receptor pathway happening, but you can't sit there and say this is, indicated for weight loss. So we're not all the way there, or fat loss specifically. Interestingly enough, weirdly enough, stoners or cannabis users as a whole, and the data actually proves it, have, less BMI. Just is what it is.
I can attest to that. Once I started using cannabis on a more consistent, regular basis, my weight just started dropping. Granted, I was struggling with, mental health issues at the time, but the cannabis was helping me with my mental health issues, and in turn, my weight just dropped. People would look at me from 2 months after a while, and they'd be like, "Where did you go?" It was just dropping, and I didn't have an answer to it. And a lot of people would make fun and be like, "Well, it doesn't weed make you gain weight because you eat a lot," and it's funny, but no, there's science behind it that it does help reduce it.
And basically, that's the important thing, is realizing, yes, THC activates effects in the body. These are the effects. It's a roundhouse of effects. It's a kitchen sink. We don't exactly know how it all works, but we know better than the average bear, better than the average budtender, a little bit about this and how to explain that to people and why it's important, right? So, even without having this chart in front of you at all times, you're taking home that you got the key, you've got the receptor, you're triggering effects. Your CB1 is located in your brain and spine. You're having, anti-inflammatory effects. You're having these other positive effects that are happening there. What may apply to some of that? Interesting, to find out whatever scenario that might be. So your CB2 receptor, again, peripheral immune tissues, leukocytes and immune cells, GI tract. What's happening in all those places? Decreased inflammation, basically. So where you see like decreased visual pain, decreased gastric motility, decreased gastric acid secretion. That's interesting stuff for a lot of those people with like IBS and Crohn's and some of that other stuff. Granted, we've seen users that have had better stomach outcomes with CBD specifically, but this isn't, these are just for people who may be seeking, right? You never know how it's going to be. You don't want to say something's going to exactly work for something because we don't know.
But it could aid, and that's exactly how you want to word this. This could aid due to the science of CB2 receptors helping that's exactly how you would want to explain it to a client. It's not going to cure it. It could aid. You just gotta find out. And it's honestly the same thing the way doctors go and send you home with, a prescription set mix to see how everything works for you. It's the same thing. We have to send them home, see how it works for them, and then when they come back and bring us their results, then we can further guide them into something else or something, maybe a smaller dose or a different product, or that's where we want to gauge and guide the client on an exact level. Use this to your advantage. This is what makes you a knowledgeable budtender. Exactly.
And so basically moving on with some of the study stuff. Right now, the known evidence that's truly like verified for, stuff, as you can tell, these are the indications for all your synthetic cannabinoids: pain, cachexia, nausea, vomiting, MS, spasticity, epilepsy. So this has been FDA approved, fully known with conclusive and substantial evidence. So these are the only things like federally that cannabis, THC and CBD have been approved for, right? Which is good, because even pain there,
that's one of the main things we have our clients come in and see us for.
It's a huge one, and that's going to be your THC, that's dronabinol, Marinol, right? That's approved for that, and where you do notice, how do you start dialing that in a little better for different patients based on dosage form, based on layering or other things. That's what hopefully we want to help make sure that you guys understand. The possible with moderate evidence, but we don't have the full-on stuff there. Reduction in long-term use of opioids, following off of last week, guys. We went deep dive into that with the opioid withdrawal, dystonia and glaucoma.
We heard that one for years. I got glaucoma.
Inconclusive though, guys. So there's not enough evidence, not enough randomized controlled trials to really actually sit there and say this is helpful for all these things. And some of these you may see a little bit more common, anxiety and depression, even sleep, right? Parkinson's. Some of these that actually may even be on inflammatory bowel disease, as we talked about, that may be on, your indications from the New Mexico Medical Cannabis page or any of the other state sites. Again, how the states, dial that up versus how federally this has been, regulated. It is different, but it's good to know that, really when you're looking at all these other effects, there is not enough evidence to sit there and tell you that this is a surefire thing, and to always be open to the fact that it's an exploratory process. And how do you explore it? You have to guide your patients. You have to be, the champion for them and help them empower that. So that's what we're going to make sure that we can, make that both a blessing, make this challenge a blessing for all of us and for our patients, right? So, some of these questions that even particular to CBD, but we're going to talk about some of the THC questions here, right? Difference between CBD and THC. Guys, as we already talked about, how they work, what receptors do they work on? I think we should know that by now. How they work on those receptors, what are possibly some of the outcomes of those receptors based on, what's happening at those sites of action, right? Other things, can I take the medication if I use cannabis, and would you recommend cannabis as an alternative to opioids? Well, the first one, would you recommend cannabis as an alternative to opioids? Data is not there officially to put it, but what we do know is the opioid epidemic is a problem. What we do know is that we can get opioid doses down with cannabis. They are both active on the pain receptor, and they both have synergistic, effects. So they work well together. So, as much as big pharma and the industry does not allow for cannabis, research to really start peeling back some of those opioid dosages and making it really commercialized, what we do know is that there is synergy at the receptor, as we learned last week, for your pain receptor, your nociceptors, and then boom, right? You can help to bring down opioid doses with introducing CBD THC combos. Can you take the medication if you use cannabis? Another good question to talk about that we will get into here. But again, guys, looking at dosage forms, right? Your popular ones, and making sure that we cover this. So covering this here is going to be important. And I think most of us know these dosage forms, but the one dosage form, that all of us continue to need that reinforcement on, extracts, baby. And we hit it last week, but we're going to hit it this week again, and we're going to literally keep hitting it until we are all blue in the face with it, because we just have to.
It's so big. It's such a huge world of extracts, and it's wow. It's a hard explanation, and sometimes the process of it is so intricate that it's a little tricky to get a full grasp on.
So guys, coming from where we were last week and everything, I think figuring out what our finished products are, whether if it's, live resin or live slush or whatever kind of cured resin or rosin material that we have, how did it get to that point, right? There is a process for that. And you have to know that, because if you know that, then you can actually have a better idea of how that product might actually affect, that customer or that patient, right? So, we showed this last week, and we'll continue to reinforce it, and we'll continue to hit it different ways. We showed a video as well, but looking at difference between fresh frozen and cured materials and the final products there. So you have, your two different main inputs that go into these products, based into your extracts. Fresh frozen or cured. Fresh frozen just chops off right out of the garden and goes into the freezer until it's time to do the extract. Then you get to that extract point. How are you going to extract it? Solventless or with a solvent, right? Or with a co-solvent, right? So those are the three things that it breaks down here. So important part of the process to get to the finished product. And again, the extracting being boiling and purging. We're not going to get into the Bill Nye of it, but right, everybody can boil pasta at home. It makes sense. You boil it. Purging is basically going to be like vacuuming out all your water out of your pasta or something like that. I'm trying to put this in a perspective, almost like straining it,
yeah,
right?
You're straining all the solvent out of your pasta.
Exactly. So it's not as complicated of a process as it really may sound, right? You've got material, then you soak it, and then you boil out whatever you soak it in. And if you're doing solventless, then you're just soaking it all the way to the point that everything's pretty much gone and you're running it through filters. But, along that way, it's going to be ran through filters. It's going to have different purging methods and things like that. And we're not going to get into the specifics of that, but where you at least know what is your solvent, right? In these extracts, what solvent does it take to get there? That's going to answer huge questions for you. Was it a hydrocarbon, being butane or propane, right? Are hydrocarbons going to get you, if it's fresh frozen, all your live material? If it's cured, right? What's it going to get you? Cured products in terms of cured resin cartridges, are probably going to be the main places that you're going to be seeing a lot of that. And then you're going to see your distillates, all your live distillates, your slush, and all the other good stuff that we talked about last week. Bennett has been talking to the budtenders already with our first couple training evals. Talk to us about who's the feedback on all this.
So the feedback that I've gotten so far is extractions are very much needed, and the education on it is very much needed to be further beat. So you guys are going to hear us talk about extractions for a long time until you guys have a great understanding of it. So this example that Joaquin said, your pasta, you boil it, you strain it. It's a good, easy way for you to picture the process, because seeing the process actually happen doesn't make you understand it any easier sometimes. There's so much going on. The producer can be doing so many different things. But so far, we've gotten a lot of good feedback about how we're going about this. I'm going to be one to sit there, and if you don't understand it further, I will find more visuals, more descriptions, something to have you understand it the way you understand. So one way that I was explaining flash resin versus cured resin to the budtenders that I actually have had an evaluation with already, your flash frozen is going to be, you cut the plant down and freeze it as soon as possible. The reason for this is to keep your terpenes and your cannabinoids as live as possible, the way it was when the plant was alive. So in turn, you would get a earthier taste and more strain-specific effects from the terpenes that plant actually produced. Your cured material is going to be after it is cured. So, and if you don't know what the term cure means, it means after you cut down your plant, you hang it up, you let it age for a little bit to have the trichomes and the THC kind of get a full flavor, full effect of things. Then from there, it's considered ready. Then it's sent out and packaged and sent to the store. So it's basically what we're selling in the shops right now, like your flower that you can currently combust and smoke at this current moment. That is your cured material, cured flower. The cured flower will then be boiled and extracted, and that's what creates your cured material. So cured resin is when the flower was already cured. It has your THC and your terpenes already aged to a specific point, and then your flash frozen is cut down right away to preserve the terpenes the way the plant had them at that exact moment that they got cut down. So that's a little understanding and I guess a Barney explanation on how to understand fresh frozen. I can't say that. Fresh frozen and cured material. So that's just one that I noticed they had a further understanding when I explained it like that.
Yep. And basically, guys, now that we've explained the inputs between fresh, frozen, and cured, I want to make sure that we dial it back in on the solvents, right? So
exactly.
Why do the solvents lead to the different outcomes? Now, the big ones being your BHO, your butane hash oil, your hydrocarbon solvents versus water versus ethanol. The main source of extraction that anybody dabs right now is going to be your BHO, basically butane hash oil, which is going to be hydrocarbon extraction. It's that middle line there. Usually you're fresh frozen or going to be cured frozen, but mostly you don't see a lot of cured. You don't see a lot of cured product going into extracts because flower is still high supply and demand and high demand. So if you have cured flower, usually it's going to hit the shelf in its own final form. So again, a lot of the times
it's not desirable looking, it's not going to sell on the shelf. A client's not going to buy it. A lot of times that will get extracted because it is good product. It is contained its THC and terpenes, but it's just not desirable looking. So a lot of times that's the times where they will use pure product for extractions.
So basically, we want to make sure that if it's something's coming out of a hydrocarbon extraction by, again, boiling out the butane or the propane and then purging it, right? Well, it leads to live extracts. Live extracts have all your terpene profiles. Like it preserves, the cool thing about hydrocarbon extraction is it preserves like 98, 99% of all your terps. It grabs everything. It does a really good job at grabbing everything. The butane just does a great job at that. Versus your rosin, it's the natural way to get to that point, but you're going to waste so much plant material but it is natural. You don't have hydrocarbons. You're not inhaling any amount of butane. You're not inhaling any residual amount of anything. And some people are just, super natural about how they want it. And that's totally awesome. It really comes out to whatever floats your boat in those manners, because you honestly may even say you're going to preserve more terpenes with a butane hash oil extraction.
I don't know. I've been in the world of dabs, and it could be, I don't know if it's the water that preserves terpenes, but I've had a lot stronger terpene profiles in a solventless extract than in anything with hydrocarbon or butane. It just, for me, and I'm not saying that there's no flavor or no taste at all, but it's almost, they're very dulled down. And in a fresh hash rosin or something like that, it's going to be very present. It's almost like a punch in the face, like if you opened up a jar of cured plant material. So it's actually pretty interesting to see. And like Joaquin said, it is all up onto a personal basis, how you like, what you expect. If you're a non-GMO, organic, living, eating person, that's probably what you're going to want in your cannabis products as well. So, and if you don't really care, you're more for the budget, you just want to have the effects of THC, a lot of times your other extraction methods are going to be a little bit on the cheaper side, because it's not wasting so much plant material. It's a little bit, you can get higher yields of your product.
Yes, exactly. And the science is kind of just what drives it at the end of the day. And I mean, I know maybe it feels like we didn't really come out of this learning how every extract gets to every point, but I just want to spark the curiosity, guys. Yes. I mean, take a look at the chart. We'll continue to keep passing out the chart and everything. And I think this is one of our bigger pain points currently. Mm-hmm. And so we just need to, try to really break it down to, hey, if we can kind of see those outcomes. Sometimes you see the visual of, hey, butane got you live, and maybe that just kind of connects all those pathways there, and then we could talk about it for 10 minutes, and then you're going to get the eval. Maybe by then we can really, really start to get this to connect, and that's the goal. It's not, hey, let's get it from right here, right now, but
exactly. So this should just be sparking that interest, sparking that curiosity on further questions to ask, or what you further need to understand.
So guys, let's continue powering through this crash course. Again, when we looked at dosage forms, I think most of us are pretty aware of the dosage forms that it comes in, but the dosage form of complication, at the end of the day, is going to always be extracts, because there's just so much there, and it's a little harder to picture and imagine. Anyways, popularity there, of course, everybody's smokers mainly, then it goes oral, and then so on and so forth. But let's get to the meat and potatoes here of the good stuff. So
this is perfect.
Dosing chart and
the
whole thing. Yeah, screenshot this. We'll send it to you guys too. Make sure you guys have the resources. You'll have it in store. But onset of action, peak and duration, route, onset time, right? Peak and duration. How long does all this last in the body based on, what actual product it is? What products get you to the inhaled dosage forms, right? Dabs, vapes, flower, joints, pre-rolls, hash holes, all that stuff was inhaled. Sublingual, tinctures, oral, edibles, right? So anyways, they don't all work the same way. They don't all take the same time to work. They don't all last as long in the body. So, it's important, because if you're helping somebody specifically for something, then you should know what they want. You should know how long they want the effects for, right? You should be asking those questions, and you should be gauging that, right? Maybe just based on their own past use.
Are they willing to wait for the effects to kick in, or do they need something right away? Do they need the onset be immediate, or do they need it to be some time frame? All of this is crucial for you guys to understand. Take a look at yourself. Whenever you ingest these different methods, how long does it take for it to hit you? How long does it stay? Things like that. Picture that, and then picture a goal for yourself. Let's just say a gym. You're going to the gym. Most of the time, you're gonna want to feel your pre-workout immediately, or you might want it to hit within 15-20 minutes, because you still have your drive to the gym. From there, that it's gonna take 60 minutes if you were to take a sublingual, so that could last you your entire workout. So you have planned it and scheduled it out. Okay, 15 minutes by the time I get to the the gym, and in those 15 minutes it'll start hitting me, and for 60 minutes I should have the lasting effects of this. That's how you want to picture it. This is also a good chart to look at for an explanation of layering. If someone wants something that hits immediately and can last for a long time, inhalation is probably going to be the main thing that we can recommend to someone. From there, if they want it to last a longer time, we cannot make inhalation go any longer. Every 15 to 30 to 45 minutes, they're going to have to keep inhaling. So at that point, you might want to recommend something that's going to hit after those 30 minutes. So like an oral, it'll hit after the 30 minutes of that inhalation coming down. So it'll kind of create this, like, as the inhalation is coming down, the oral is coming up. So then they don't have a missed point of being medicated. So layering and onset duration of things is very crucial for you guys to know as a bud tender. Very crucial.
100%. And I mean, exactly. She gave you the reason on how to apply it. She gave you all the extra layers on to be able to, uncover that. This is the visual chart, and then again, we're going to make you guys write it down, and we're going to go through scenarios, and we're going to make sure that this gets applied the right way, because I understand that it's a challenge, when you really try to think about it, and maybe every single person and every single patient may feel like a puzzle, and maybe some things feel rushed sometimes and stuff, but we have to know our baseline. We have to know everything. We have to know what we can know, right? So anyways, I think I've shown this one to you before, but again, we want to make sure that we reinforce it. Dosing, right, guys? When we talk about layering and the whole thing, dosing is so personal for everybody, right? When people are buying things, they're buying, based on dose. Are they, maybe sharing their dose with friends? Are they what is the dose? And so again, we've challenged our bud tenders to find your dose. Have you really thought about that? The big thing to reinforce, anywhere from 2.5 milligrams of THC and above can cause a head change. It can cause you to be high. And as a bud tender, you know that that's your ceiling dose for any cannabis naive person, anybody who's never tried it, who doesn't want to get high. Don't go past 2.5 milligrams. Science says you will get high, right? Knowing that, you are a beacon of trust. You're a beacon of hope for those people. Most medical providers in town aren't even going to know that kind of stuff right now. So we need to really...
Or are going to shy their patient away from even doing it. So you are a trusted source. They're not going to talk to their doctors that much about it if their doctor isn't cannabis friendly. They're going to come and ask their bud tender, and they trust the bud tender. So it's really crucial for you guys to try and get this honed down and just learn. And it's wonderful knowledge to have, because anytime someone tries to spark a conversation about cannabis with me, I will go off about cannabis and the knowledge of it, because people don't understand it, and we are the catalyst for the change. As bud tenders and being in the industry, we are the catalyst for the change. We will spark those conversations with people, and dosing is something that clearly people don't really focus on. They just intake, and that's it. And when we want to have a medicinal standpoint of things, we want to make sure that we can have these conversations and get to the bottom line of the scientific parts of things.
Exactly. Does somebody, want to get to sleep with some back pain? Does somebody, have stomach inflammation? What is going on? How can you start recommending, things in the right way for people, right? So, we look at drug interactions, and this isn't for anybody to remember fully, and we've shown it a little bit before, but just showing that...
I think we showed it last podcast because of
got
the
your receptors
opioid,
in the body, but they do, your receptors that are not endocannabinoid system receptors metabolize everything in your liver, drugs and so on and so forth. Anyways, it gets in the way. When those receptors get busy with things like other drugs, then they, can be affected by having THC added in. So all of a sudden they're really occupied, and they have to decide what they're going to use, whether they're, agonists or antagonists on that receptor is going to basically define how, if it inhibits the receptor action or not. So it's either going to metabolize faster or build up in the body, and it will make these other medications do it, basically by adding cannabis in. So again, people that take medication that are on, the works, definitely need to have that conversation with their provider about introducing cannabis. But as we talk about, cannabis in incredibly low doses is usually what most people are taking. Most people do not take any sort of a high dose when you really think about it. Side effects from all of it, guys, THC and CBD, I think we kind of have general ideas on the THC side effects: anxiety, dizziness, vasovagal collapse, right? That dry mouth, not being able to talk. you know, psychosis, depression, euphoria, even drowsiness, dizziness, all of those can be associated with THC. All the reasons sometimes people don't want to get to these effects, right? CBD can cause diarrhea, it can cause sleep disturbances, THC can too, somnolence being, just, and so that's kind of the basis of this presentation here, and lining up and priming you guys up for picking things out with our customers, with our patients, whether you're at the family on the Thanksgiving table. I think that's the applicable point. It's like, all right, well, did so-and-so come in today because, she's got back pain and she's been through every single spinal surgery and every opioid and is just living with it at this point. Maybe they don't all come there. Maybe you're not going to sit there and really try to dial in and be, the puzzle artist and the, complete workup of that. But at the same time, hey, if you go to AutoZone and somebody's, got a car and, you ask the shop person there, somebody can really help you out with parts to that car, even though it takes like 15 different reasons to know why you got to that point. Or, you only use this on the 97 model and, so on and so forth. Exactly. It's just that dialed in.
Yeah. And that's how we want you guys to be that dialed in. You got to be able to help any type of client or guide any type of client. Of course, we don't have the answers to it all, but we can just provide the information that we do know and give that to them and have them have a better understanding of how cannabis works in their body. People don't understand, people who have consumed cannabis for as long as I have been alive. I have had clients tell me this. I've consumed cannabis for as long as you have been alive. They don't know what we know. They don't have the understanding and the grasp of the many different ways it reacts with our bodies. So it's important, even our older generation, they didn't have access to clinical studies or peer-reviewed reports of cannabis. It was shunned upon. It was a taboo subject that people had to hide. So
right, Cheech was looking at Chong and be like, hey, did that work, bro?
Yeah.
But we're so much farther beyond that now, guys. It's insane, and we can all be just that much better, and we're going to make sure that everybody gets that dialed in. Bennett's going to be hitting you guys with the one-on-ones. I hope this podcast kind of hit some key points for you guys.
Hopefully.
I mean, it's still going to take so much self-exploring, self-study, picking products up off the shelf and thinking about, all of that, really trying to apply it, looking at your fellow budtender and really getting to those points as well. I mean, it's an ongoing process, but we are kicking up the heat now.
I have a challenge for you guys. Since we are on the brink of breaking down all of this extraction stuff, I want you guys to research what microns are and why they're important. Hash rosin is a very big thing, an up and coming thing in the industry. It's going to be on the shelves at many different dispensaries. And the last thing you want is a client to come in and ask you about microns. So study up on microns, figure it out, and I will ask you about it. And we can talk about it. We can figure out what microns are, what microns mean to people. And yeah, so that's your challenge.
Challenge accepted. We'll see you guys next week. Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye-bye.
And thank you to all who are working tomorrow, Thanksgiving Day.